Life is a garden, and we are all gardeners. Humans like plants. We have many living necessities that we need in order to survive. We need water, which is very tweakable. If a plant is not getting enough water, you add water. If a plant getting too much water, you don't water as much. And they need light. Light is not as tweakable as water. In fact, it's not tweakable at all. You can put a plant in the light and you can take a plant out of the light, but plants, like people, they grow in light and they grow towards light and they need light. So, like I always say, right plant, right place. The same with people. Right person, right place. What I want to say, the difference that I see is plants innately know that they need light and water. They go, if you put them out of the light, they start growing towards the light. It's my question that I want to know is if plants maybe are wiser than people, because people don't even realize that they need to go towards the light. They say, we know that you need plants, water, and light to survive, but people can survive. I don't know if it's fully surviving, but they can make it without light. Even though I don't really know if they can or can't, but it isn't something that you will die automatically without that, like you would as a plant. So today, my guest is my teacher, who I'm so honored to have her with me. And she knows quite a bit about the light because she is growing in the light all the time. Her name is Elisheva, and we are here today to talk about light. Light, inner light and outer light. She's going to tell her story a little bit, and then I'm going to ask her a few questions about being in the light. Go. Give a little story, and then I'll ask questions.
Okay, so I think my story, my origin story with light is very typical. I know a lot of people who went through a similar process. Well, I'll say to what you shared before, one of the main differences between people and plants is that plants don't have free will, right? A plant will notice that a building was built in front of it that obstructs it from sunlight, and it will grow toward the sunlight. I was actually just showing my kids that with palm trees as we were driving, that the shorter ones are leaning, whereas the ones that have reached above the tops of the buildings are straight, and they went through a bendy period also, so they could find their light and grow.
Right on.
But once they're above a certain point, they don't even have to make the effort. They're straight. And as human beings, we aren't always sure what the source of light is or what's the best position for us to grow. I can tell you as a young person myself, I thought light was different things. Mm-hmm. I was a very talented teenager, a very smart, very lovely, if I do say myself. But as many teenagers do, I got involved with people who had different priorities, and I went down a dark path that felt very energizing. I got a lot of energy out of the fun we were having and how we were having our fun, etc. And the challenge with looking for light from the wrong sources or from non-sustainable sources, right? Again, this metaphor just works so well, right? The sun doesn't take a vacation. The sun doesn't have mood swings. The sun is a renewable resource, at least for the imaginable future. Right. And the other sources of light are temporary, and they're more flash in the pan, like lots of energy, lots of light, and then darkness. And the easiest one I can use as a metaphor is actually sugar, because it's also part of the photosynthesis process, right? You need a pick-me-up, you go for the sugar or the caffeine or whatever your habit is, and you're on, right? You're great until it's done, and then you're not. And so at a certain point, I had attracted enough darkness in my life that my parents, who were very spiritual people, said, listen, at this point, you have nothing to lose by listening to us. Here's what we think you should do. And
How old?
I was 16. So I was lucky enough to mess up horrendously early. And they gave me certain assignments, even, by the way, even physical ones, like they took me to a naturopath and I started to clean up my diet, and a lot of different things in my life needed cleaning up.
Tweaking.
Pruning, if you will.
Thank you.
We needed to prune some stuff out of my life. And that's I think that's one of the most amazing things about when you encounter genuine light, the true source, not the artificial, not the temporary, not the short term. It feels so different, and it's so life-changing that I couldn't, as much as it was hard for me, my pride didn't want to admit that my parents were right, or that I should have listened sooner, or anything like that. But at a certain point, it was like, it became my path as well. And a lot of people out there that I work with are stuck in that place of the cheap and easy shots of light are actually feel better than the sustainable, than really taking light from the source. But I guess in a way, when you think about the plant that has to, or even the weed in the sidewalk that has to break through the cement in order to grow, true growth that's sourced in true light is more effort. And I think for us as humans, again, it may be American society, and I'm sure not everybody who listens lives in America necessarily, but a lot of first world marketing schemes are built on easy, quick, painless, short, overnight delivery, instant download. We want everything now.
Immediately.
The less effort you make, the better. And that's really contrary to everything in nature, the natural world.
Totally.
There is nothing easy and quick in the natural world. There are some trees that don't bear fruit for 10 years, 20 years, and we wouldn't live if not for that process. So when we reflect upon it as human beings, part of the question I had to ask myself back then is, what do I really want?
Right.
Do I want to go from high to high to high to high, or, excitement, or fun, like a kind of pinball game, right? Pinball.
Right.
Trying to think about my metaphors. Or do I want to move forward in a thoughtful and mindful and focused way where, things may be hard, they may be difficult, but I can control how I respond to that challenge. Whereas when you're bouncing off from thrill to thrill and rush to rush and excitement to excitement, I know a lot of people that they're only excited when they're working on a project,
right,
or they're only excited in the honeymoon phase of dating, right? They're looking for the thrill of the moment versus building growing roots and having strength. Right. I think there's a metaphor even in the teachings of Kabbalah a lot about trees. And one of them is that, you can have the strongest trunk and the most fertile leaves, but if the roots are shallow, one storm and the tree is done. So a lot of us focus on looking at the tree, how beautiful is the tree, how perfect the tree is, versus doing the things that are unseen, underground, unnoticed. And that's really how to develop the foundation for lasting, we call it light or fulfillment, things that what you have the ups and downs. But did you ever see that there's I have to find the video. It's like a science reel where there's a metal ball that's running down a plane that's going down at, let's say, a 45-degree angle. And then right next to it, you have it's not a plane, it's another wedge, but it's
up and down.
Up and down. And the ball that goes up and down gets to the bottom faster
than the
straight wedge. So from that, again, this is a natural, so much of nature proves these spiritual principles, but the ups and downs actually propel you faster in your growth than a steady, I want to say controlled progression, straight down. You think that the easiest or the straight way is the way to go, but it is really the growth and the ups and downs. It's like the going down actually builds up greater momentum.
Completely. That's such a good life lesson, too. Obviously, we need those downs to feel those ups. But I want to go back to the garden for 1 minute because there are annuals that last just 1 year. These shallow roots need a lot of water, gorgeous, boom, and then they're done. Perennials is what we are kind of like because we have to grow our roots. We don't flower right away. We take a minute to get there. And then there's like bulbs that you can force. You know, you can bring them in your house. It's not in any kind of, you know, it needs this, that, or the other. It needs nothing but a little bit of water in a thing. And they live for a minute and they're gorgeous and then they're dead. So I feel like there's many life lessons in there for us and the light as well. And I think that's so important to know that when you do get yourself firmly planted into the ground, you have a much better chance of standing up tall and staying around and sticking around. So I like all of those.
I actually thought about a metaphor.
Go.
So, you want me to just jump right in and just say it, and it'll be random if it works? So, in Kabbalah, we learn that every thought, word, and action plants a seed.
Oh, why didn't I think of that one?
Well, when you say life is a garden, that's really what Kabbalah teaches, is that every moment is an opportunity for me to plant a seed. Less limited seed, less limited fruit, more limited seed, more limited fruit. So the Kabbalists invite us to really examine if our thoughts, words, and actions are in alignment with the reality we want to create. So, you know, I may want for my family or for my business or for my neighborhood or my country for that matter, that there'll be more love, more unity, more cooperation, more compassion. But I'm thinking all day long about what I'm doing wrong and how terrible I am and how broken I am and how no one's ever going to love me. But I'm out there trying to change the world and make it a better place, but I'm basically
in here suffering.
Right. I'm trying to shove seeds into a bed of gravel. Right?
Completely. With no light, no water.
Right. In a closet.
Right.
Gravel in a closet. in the Lincoln Tunnel, gravel. I'm trying to plant seeds in that gravel. But what's amazing is that the moment you realize it, you stopping the planting of those seeds. And we can also, even retroactively, uproot seeds that we are not proud of, that we would do differently now. And it's really, but I feel like one of the things for me personally that helps me behave as a better person is the knowledge that I don't want to eat bad fruit later.
Right.
If I have control of it, and I do, I'd rather not get angry now, because anything I say and do while I'm angry is going to come back to bite me afterwards.
Yeah, right.
So a lot of times when people say, oh, my marriage this or my work that or my whatever it is, I say, well, what was your mindset when it started? Those are the seeds you planted. And what would you like the seeds to look like now? And we work backwards.
So good. Because truly, if you plant half-ass old seeds, you're getting a half-ass old life. You plant those good premium ones, you got premium juice. Okay, so tell me, how did you get your roots, after at 16 when you decided to plant a different kind of seeds, because those other seeds were young seeds, and you really can't plant your parents' seeds either. They can teach you, but you can't put those in the ground either, and they can't do that for you. So what was the switch?
That is a really good question.
Or when did you become your own advocate of plants?
No, I think it's an important question, because in the journey of life, one thing that I do see stops people from growing is knowing that they need to change drastically and not being able to find either the resolve or the support. Sometimes people say, well, if I live the life I know I'm meant to live, people are going to be upset, disappointed. My families are going to stop talking to me. I'm not going to be able to make money for a while. Like, there's this sort of crisis of conscience that takes place when the disparity between who I am and who I know I can be have coffee together. So for me, I think there was a big realization as far as community, let's not even use the word community, environment, which I think, again, lends itself beautifully to the garden. I had to recognize that I was hanging out with pretty shady characters. And just because they lived in good neighborhoods and had parents who loved them didn't mean that they were healthy and thriving and supportive.
With good roots.
And what I found in my own path is once I listened to my parents, advocating now as a parent myself, listen to them, those youngsters who are listening now, but transplanting myself to a better environment helped me feel that it was safe to be authentically me. And the person that I had been before was a shell of who I could be. And that was the real realization that motivated me to make drastic changes.
That's huge. At 16 years
old? At 16, on a social level, it was pretty gutting.
Drastic.
But the trade-off was so obvious, meaning there was really no, should I, shouldn't I? It was, the expense of staying the same was too great. And I think a lot of people have that moment where they realize, I just can't do this anymore. And maybe people who've healed from addiction or toxic relationships, that resonates very quickly. I think all of us have that moment in our lives where we realize, I can't grow in this pot anymore.
Yeah,
I've outgrown this. So I think part of it was suddenly recognizing the difference the right environment can make. I think part of it was also being better in touch with what lights me up, what nourishes me, what fulfills me, that just because something makes everyone else happy doesn't mean it makes me happy, and vice versa for that matter. So it was also shifting how I spend my time. So it's who I spent my time with, how I spent my time. And one of the big lessons about environment is that environment isn't just people.
Right.
It's the books you read, the podcasts you listen to, the TV you watch, the thoughts that you have. So when I turned my mind, and I was still in school
In high school?
I was still in high school, but I'm saying that process wasn't spontaneous. It took to really sink those roots in and commit to that process. It took me a while. But what I found is that I need a higher quality of mental environment. That what I feed myself, I'm not looking for like candy bars and popcorn. Although I do love popcorn, I need something more substantial, and that stewing or soaking myself in higher mindset, higher consciousness, even though, full disclosure, I don't always understand all that stuff instantly, the wrestling with it, like, I think it makes me think of, philosophers thousands of years ago, that they just love to debate, and those public, Plato, Socrates, like that simply the chewing on the concept and playing with it and putting it back and forth between two people, that's really what brings it down to earth. I think that's the podcast that David and I do. We're basically chewing and spitting out concepts between each other.
It's fantastic.
And then it helps people understand and take it and use it. And so I found that being open-minded to other ideas and concepts and other people's perspectives, processing it and then putting it back out there was a very helpful process that I hadn't been exposed to, I guess, as a child or as a young person. And I would say those are the
That's
three
really
main
big. I mean,
things.
especially to know that at 16 years old, because you can put a plant in any garden, and as I always say, right plant, right place. If it's just not suited for that, it's just not going to do it. But to know that at 16 is really big, especially because if you do get the right plant in the right place early, you have that for life, literally. There's so many people that have to be transplanted, myself included, and I didn't get that till I was like 50 years old, so really to know those things early is fabulous. And like she just said about eating, everybody needs good fertilizer. And there's fertilizer that's got like boost in it, and for 15 minutes you're like big, fat, green, and juicy, and then you're not. Or there's a slow release where that takes that, I feel like now that I'm a student too, and I've been a student there for 16 years, it was a slow release. Like, it took me. This was not something that I, at all. I wanted to because my soul wanted to. But I had so many other outside things, irrigation from this place and a hose and this, nothing was giving me a direct, like, take this fertilizer and put it on this drip, and together this is going to be, So I feel like just to have that so early is so lucky, because we do all kind of like plants and people. We come from a seed. The seed needs to be nurtured. If it's nurtured properly, I mean, how lucky were you to be nurtured at that age, to be like, no, you got to change everything about yourself if you want to be, that they knew that, huge. But I feel like spirituality comes in after this. Well, I mean, if you're lucky enough, like you have raised your kids, you planted that seed with the light on it in a whole different way. But I didn't know to plant my seeds that way. But I feel like the more you growing, the more you realize, like, this seed has to have this kind of dirt and this kind of scheduled watering, and to really make it happen for yourself. And so, but what I also want to say about Kabbalah is, I love it so much, and I got a little bit at the beginning, it felt a little gaudy to me, just for my own self. I didn't want everybody to think like, oh, there goes Alicia. She went and joined the old church. So the more I started going and realizing, like, first of all, Kabbalah calls the creator a creator, and calls light, and light is what you want to be in. Light is where the magic happens. Light is like the God stuff. But only when I really realized, like, I love light. Light is what I crave. As a kid, it's what I wanted, to have my windows wide open, as a gardener, and now as a spiritual person. So it all, once I started realizing, like, this is all connected to who I am, and this is all I want to do, then now I can own it and be like, of course it's, godlike. Of course it's big and juicy. So my next question to you is, how would you tell somebody that didn't have direction from their parent, or maybe even a little bit older, like, that path you already know doesn't suit you, I can see it from here, it's not working?
I would rarely tell that to someone.
I know you wouldn't. You'd say it in a different way, though.
Well, I probably even wouldn't. I feel an experience has shown that every person, and that's maybe an important message for everyone as well, is that the light doesn't discriminate. Like, it doesn't matter what path you're on, where you've been, what you did, who you were. The light is shining regardless. What most of us inadvertently do is we put up an umbrella or a curtain, a tent, if you will, between us and the light. And it may seem arduous or impossible to take the umbrella or the tent down, but it literally can be done in one gesture. And I think that going back to the idea of the light or the creator, right, you can have 1 million people sitting in a room, a dark room, only one of them has to flip the switch to turn the light on. So if anyone out there is listening and thinking, that sounds great, but, look at my path, look at what destruction I created, look at what, who I am or what I've done. It literally takes one person getting up out of their seat and flipping the switch.
For everybody to get the light.
For not only you, but for everyone around you. In any situation, you could be sitting in a business meeting and everybody is talking about how to pollute the universe. How can we take advantage of the weak and poor? You could be in the dungeon of the dungeon of dungeons and still flip the switch. And it's important to remember that, because this is really at the essence of what Kabbalah teaches, is that each one of us is meant to be a creator. Each one of us, you look at a single seed that grows a single flower or plant or tree. Every single seed is meant to grow its own universe. And from that seed can grow infinite other flowers, fruits, plants, whatever. So I've talked to people before, like, I can't, I'm too far gone. Nobody will accept me, or I'll never be able to replant all those seeds. And the truth is, there's no such thing. Like, I know it sounds funny, I'm just take my word for it, but even in our own, even in society, the stories we are drawn to are the ones where people turn away from darkness and move toward the light, right? The great cinematic works are all about either darkness, right. Converting darkness to light, light triumphing over darkness. That's all we want. And that's a soul desire.
Totally.
We all want to witness the light emerging from the rubble. And that's why we'll watch the next Marvel installation, or we'll tune into the next episode of whatever it is, because we're looking for the redemption. We're looking for the triumph, good over evil. And it's not even about good over evil. That spark, Kabbalah teaches that everyone has a spark of light inside them. Not only every person, everything, every inanimate object, every animal, every living thing, everything. Even a blade of grass. Right. Every blade of grass has its own spark. So how much more so in a person who can decide, I'm going to do this today and I'm not going to do that today, right? I'm going to drive myself to Alaska, or I'm going to call up my parents and apologize, or whatever seems like insurmountable. So that's the point, is that every single individual, every entity on the planet has the opportunity, because every entity on the planet was created with a purpose. Now, it's absolutely possible for an individual or a plant or an animal to reject that spark over and over and over again, which we say in Kabbalah, it's like putting a towel over a lamp.
Right.
At some point, you won't be able to see the light anymore, even though the bulb itself is still burning, it's still plugged in. But at a certain point, the light will no longer be perceivable. Everyone has it. And so the real work is simply removing those layers.
Right.
And that can be done in so many ways. That's why we have so many classes. There's so many ways to remove the veils and the curtains or the umbrellas. I like umbrella because it really is as simple as going like this.
Right. Up and down.
Up and down. And I got upset yesterday morning. Doesn't matter why. I was a little bit impatient with people I love, not only people I don't love, but also people I love. And I could hear the of the umbrella going up. And there was a point that said, I don't care. This happens so many times. I'm just not, and I got into this sort of vacuum mode of sucking all the energy in the room. And then I was like, you know what? Not helping me, right. Not helping them. And I put the umbrella back in the closet.
So how long did that take from start to finish? For that bloom to show up?
I want to say 10 minutes.
Okay, that's
it was a car ride. We're late. I'm stewing. We got there and I was like,
what the heck?
Who's this helping?
Yeah.
This is so fourth grade. I'm just going to put it aside.
It is just so fourth grade.
It's so fourth grade. Who am I? I say it to my kids all the time. They don't get what they want and they act mean or upset or whatever. And I'm like, who are you punishing?
I know. It's so true.
Who are you punishing, guys? You didn't get what you want. I'm not going to give in if you're going to be gruff. You're the only one who's losing out right now. Come back down and watch TV with the rest of us or whatever it is.
Right.
So we're all that 10-year-old who wants their way and wants what they want and wants how they want it. But you who are listening, who are not 10 anymore, know that what makes you happy at 10 isn't what makes you happy at 20 or 30 or 40 or 50. So with that mindset, even if you're 50 or 60 and listening right now and thinking, what's this all about? You can find a better toy to play with.
Right.
You can find another book that interests you. I mean, we do it all the time. Another favorite restaurant, another, flashy toy or something. We can. Obviously, the things that are so ingrained in us are harder to break and transcend, but I've seen enough people to tell you that whatever it is you think you have that's unchangeable or irreversible,
It's not.
Sorry, it's not.
Right. I mean, it's almost like, we live in a place where we have zones where you can grow things. And, you can't grow certain tropicals in California, but actually, with enough work, you can. So if you want to put your mind to anything, you can do it. But you said something about a plant, because do you think a plant purposely is like, I'm not going towards that light?
No, because the plant doesn't have free will. The plant doesn't have moods or attitudes or grudges.
Right. We said that from the beginning. Right.
So that's the advantage that plants and animals have, right? An animal will see a raging fire and run. A human will say, ooh, pretty, I want to touch it.
That's interesting. Let's go look.
Yes, or let's stop traffic so I can see what's going on. But no other creature will do that. So we're the ones that see things that are bad for us and think it's good, and see things that are good for us and think, no, that's bad. All the other creatures on the planet have clarity about good and bad.
It's so interesting to know that like a plant with no brain has more clarity than I do.
Well, I studied viticulture.
Oh, what? I don't even know what viticulture
growing vines, wine, grapes.
Oh, viticulture.
And what's interesting, so there's a really beautiful technique that's done in winemaking, or let's say growing grapes, that I think is a beautiful metaphor for what we're talking about here. So there is, in Europe, where wine is mostly made, or at least historically has been there forever, there is, the vines are all susceptible to this kind of pest that the vines can't protect themselves against. So they graft American vines onto the roots of European vines, and eventually they merge, and the part above the graft is no longer susceptible to the pest.
They got protection.
So I'm not proposing that people graft
American
brains or something, where this is not a medical conversation. But to me, it really speaks to, my past may be rotten, but I can completely transplant my present and my future to be so much healthier and so much to flourish. And of course, even, every, like you said, perennials, right?
Yep.
They have a cycle. They have seasons. That's one of the, I'm so fascinated by it personally, that there is this, it's like, to me, it's the merge of art and science. Mm-hmm. Like, on one hand, we as humans can interfere and help, i.e. pruning or fertilizing or irrigation, weeding, etc. But what can come of that is like that partnership creates something so magical. So that, I want to say it's like music. Not everybody loves music, but it's like every plant then has its own like symphony. And I really feel that it is a perfect metaphor for what we try to do when we grow spiritually, is that we can, if you really are intent on it, you can build on a rotten past.
Right. You can, literally.
You can't literally, I mean.
Compost, baby, compost.
It's such a brilliant, even just to watch the speeded up films of like how it literally becomes a new plant. And it still has the positive qualities of both the resilience of the American stock and the history and the richness and the soil. Still, that part is still in touch with the soil. It is who you are. It's where you came from. You chose that.
Your roots.
But you're building on it with something more healthy and more...
It's
more abundant.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. So this orchid right here was that. It came when I first got it. It was this light white pink. And then I moved and it took a beating, but I kept talking to it like I do. It had a different kind of light at my other house. I brought it to this house with me and it went for a moment and it looked like it was going to die and I was just heartbroken. And I put it into the window and I kept nurturing it and it came back and it's doing that. So I feel like there's hope.
What you just said is exactly the point about environment. That if you talking in a loving way to a plant
100%.
can help it flourish, think about, right now, whoever's listening, think about yourself, the thoughts you think, I even say to my kids, you're listening to like this music that's a little bit
Dicey.
let's use that word, dicey, and your cells are hearing it. Like it's not just your ears, the vibration is being absorbed by all of you. So we say, okay, yes, you need to talk loving words to plants or to pets or to young children, give them positive reinforcement. Every single person is a plant.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're listening to hate, gossip, slander, even just the divisiveness, you turn on the TV now or you listen to news in any format, it is so divisive.
Yeah.
You can't feel good about the team you're rooting for because they're winning because they're putting someone else down or disparaging someone else.
Right, not because they're fabulous.
Well, my kids play basketball, and my daughter was playing a game, and a girl, went into her. Body check. Motive remains to be seen. Innocent until proven guilty, of course. But, she came off the court. She was crying. And the father in the stand said, do it again, and next time harder. Mm. And so in the car, we had a whole conversation.
Did we all hear him say that?
Oh, everyone heard him say it, including my daughter, his daughter, all the other parents on the sideline. It caused whatever it caused. And then in the car back, we decided that we feel worst for the girl.
Whose father it was.
Because she has to wrestle between what her heart is telling her and what her dad is telling her.
Wow.
And I feel like that's really the perfect diorama of what happened, what's in the world right now. Your soul, that spark inside you is telling you, is always guiding you to the highest choice, to the best, to the win-win for everyone involved. And we have all this noise.
Right.
And it comes from people who mean well and people who are educated and people in high places. So we're at odds with, should I follow my soul?
Right.
Or should I go to the school my parents are telling me to go to, or move to the place that my partner wants me to go to, or compromise my values in this way or that way? And strengthening your connection to that spark is the answer for everything. I think we underestimate the power of intention. That if we're going down the garden metaphor, I would say that soil is intention.
Mm-hmm. Good soil.
Good soil. Well, positive intention would be good soil. So how does that work? Or what is bad soil, good fruit, let's say? I'm going to be a wonderful and generous person so people will love me. And what ends up happening in that perennial cycle is I'm bending myself over backwards for people so that I can justify our friendship or our connection. I can feel like I'm contributing, so that I feel a lot of people out there correlate what they do with their worth.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
So the more they're doing, the more they're justifying their existence, the better and it looks good because it's putting goodness out there. But the goodness comes from fear that nobody's going to love me.
Right.
Fear that they're going to forget about me. Fear that I'm going to lose my relevance. Fear that I'm not important anymore, or I'm not going to have anything to do on the weekends if I stop planning everything for everybody to do.
Right.
So same external actions, but with the desire to create space for more love and connection for people.
Right.
I mean, I could give you a million less limited intentions, but I think it's a good exercise for everybody to ask ourselves, why am I doing what I'm doing?
Right.
Even for the good things, right? You would think, well, there's a shortage of good things in the world. Why should I question that? Because if the soil is rotten, the good things aren't going to result in good fruits.
Regardless of how much your intention is there.
Right.
Right. I mean, if I brought old seeds and an old whatever, but I love you and I want to plant you the best garden ever, it's just not happening
Or
that way.
a lot of people say, well, if I don't do it, no one else will. That's an amazing intention.
It is. It's like, what the hell does that
I don't
even
want you to
mean?
do it for me if no one else is going to do it. I'd rather
There's
no one
a
else do it.
reason.
Right. Those kind of things. Or I've always done it. So how can I possibly say no or stop? Or there's so many
Oh, yes.
skewed intentions that we build everything on, and then we wonder why the friendship dissolves or the partnership dissolves. It was laying on quicksand, basically. So if anything, just simply asking, going through the course of a day or a week, a month, and asking yourself, well, me and this group, we always go out on Thursdays. Why?
Right.
This is how I do my Saturday mornings. Why? Just because I've always done it that way. This is the way I drive to work. This is the way, just questioning why.
Curious.
But yeah, not in a, I'm a terrible person, why do I do this? That's not a very helpful question. Who taught me, who can I blame for programming me like this? It's more, how did this seed get here? And what would I like to put there instead? And to know that
really work there instead.
For sure.
Right.
Because just as an example, by the way, I met with somebody who's in a relationship that's ticking all the boxes, but isn't sparking her. It's not moving. It's not a soul partnership. So we had a conversation about, how can she get out of it? Well, she doesn't want to hurt the person, blah, blah, blah. So I said, if you knew that both of your soulmates were waiting on the other side of this breakup, would you hesitate? But you don't realize that when you hold on to something that no longer serves you, it's not only holding you back, it could be holding other people back. And that's was a big motivation for shifting the narrative around ending things as a bad thing, or walking away from a habit you've done forever is going to be devastating. We don't know what's on the other side of the end of something like that. And so I think it's a big, asking why is such a powerful question from a curious and self-interested place rather than a harsh and berating place.
Right, and beating yourself. And I think once you do start doing those questions, you are more likely to be like, I trust that this is the right thing for me. I keep thinking it all day long anyway. I've not been happy for years. What, am I waiting? Well, the kids are young and we can't do that to them. It's like, no, you're not doing anybody a favor. So I like that thinking too. I'm not the teacher, but I would say you have to just keep coming back. Because you can't, try something for 20 minutes and be like, that doesn't feel right to me. So if you make this intention, like, I want to be a better person, or I want to know light more, or I want to be around people that are, you have to keep doing it. Because to do it for 5 minutes, even to do it for 1 week. So it takes commitment, I think. You say, I'm going to make this, I want to be a good student. I can't be a good student unless I show up. For myself and for what I said I was gonna. But I don't know how you start that. So, I guess you find something.
I think it's two things. There is, this is proven scientifically or psychologically now that a person's success depends heavily on their ability to tolerate discomfort. Mm-hmm. And change is uncomfortable. So when you say to keep coming back, it's, if you think about it, most things that are quote unquote healthy aren't delicious.
No. It's
broccoli tastes like that? Broccoli, right?
I know. There's no ice cream taste there.
Kale tastes like kale, but my point is, studies show that if you're willing to do what's uncomfortable, you will succeed.
The benefits.
And I think something you said before about the environment that creating meaningful change doesn't happen in isolation. Of course, sometimes it has to. You hear a lot of beautiful light from darkness stories for people that were imprisoned or in dire circumstances. But when you can choose your circumstances, I think there is a higher success rate of overcoming and transforming and healing in a supportive environment. And that's one of the reasons we have classes. Even the classes we have online are on Zoom so that you can interact. You have smaller breakout rooms and workshops and whatnot, so that even if you do live, if in your family or your immediate area you're the only one who's on this journey, you don't have to do it alone. And I think that again, in the garden, you plant one seed of one varietal, it has less chance of thriving than it would if it were in a row or in a bunch of seeds that were growing in the same way and needed the same things. So,
but sometimes you can do that too, and you'll still have one or two that just don't make it, and the rest do.
For sure. And you can say the same thing. 1,000 people come to study spirituality, one stays for the long haul. So that, to me, you mentioned earlier the idea that there's the bulbs and the
different kinds, annuals,
perennials. So not everybody is meant to do this work for all eternity. A lot of people come, they take a few classes, and it's like, wow, my life is better, and they're on their way.
Until they fall again.
Well, but again, you look at the, I believe, and this is now editorial moment, I believe that people who are meant to do great things have a more dynamic path. It's not a straight line.
Right.
There are the ups and downs.
It's that game you talked about.
Right. The dips provide the momentum to go even higher. And if you're willing to stick with it, you will still have dips, but you'll also get higher.
I think that's really true. And I think of like a program like Al-Anon and AA. You don't stay, you get sober and then you drop the program. It doesn't work like that. Like if you really want to be good at it, you keep coming back. I think it's so good. And it's kind of like gardening too, because if you don't take care of things, pulling the weeds, making sure the grass isn't growing in the bed that's full of tulips, you put your boundaries and your borders up. That's the kind of stuff that happens. It weakens.
It's called biodynamic.
Yes.
Gardening, right?
Yes. It's part of that.
Part of it is bringing the plants that support the crop, bringing the insects that support the crop, bringing the birds that support creating the perfect environment.
That's the whole idea.
So that it can flourish, it can flower and grow and provide. It just is such a. I always go to nature.
I know, me too.
If you want to know what the right thing to do, find the example in nature.
So true.
And it's so easy to see. But that idea of looking for what do I need to be my best also means looking for what I don't need.
True.
In order to be my best.
Totally. But to find what you need through other, find the right bees and the right stuff to make your garden really thrive, surround yourself with the right stuff, make sure those weeds, obviously that little girl with the father has no choice to pull that weed, at least not yet.
Yes. Not yet, but soon.
Yeah, exactly. But so I just want to, as we're going to wrap this up a little, I asked some people what they would ask you if they were sitting here with me. And I got two questions. One was, why do we need the light? What are we better for, even though we've just sat here talking about it? If somebody doesn't understand that concept, how... This lady said, I want to understand it, but I don't know why I need light. And I was like, well, I told her that if you don't have light, you're in dark. But she asked, how would that person, what would happen to me if I don't get light? I'm 60 years, she said, I'm 56 years old. What happens to me if I don't get light? I don't know. Do you die on the vine?
No, I think, if you would ask the 15-year-old me, or the 40-year-old you, or anyone else stepping into the light. I thought I was a pretty great kid. I was a pretty good, if you ask my parents, I was a pretty great kid.
Were too,
and I'm sure I would have made a really wonderful mom and housewife, and I was already driven to give back. I volunteered at different, nonprofits and things like that. I was not, I tried to contribute more than I consume already back then.
Wow.
So I think that the way to look at it is more not good or bad. Like, of course, being more in the light is better and being less in the light is worse. I would look at it, I would use the words instead limited and unlimited. That I don't know if the 16-year-old me could have conceived that I could do what I'm doing now on such a platform in front of so many people on a regular basis. Even though I wanted to do good, my version of good was, I'll volunteer at my kids' school. I'll donate blood. We'll go to the homeless shelter on Thanksgiving, and we donate our clothes and our books, and I love recycling. You know what I mean? I tick all the good boxes, but even that is limited compared to what I can do when I partner with the light, when I allow my light to shine, when I actively pursue the light.
Right.
So I think people are always like, is this the right thing to do? Is this a good thing to do? I don't even use those words. It's limited versus unlimited. Is this the most unlimited thing for you? Probably not.
Right. So that is, I like that thinking a lot. It's your choice. It really is. You have free will to grow towards the light.
But that goes back to what that person who I hope is listening, she has light in her whether she likes it or not.
Right.
Whether
we
all have it. So that's ground zero. You have that to build upon. If you're good with that, whatever connection you have, great. That's limited compared to what you can have and who you can be.
I love that. I think it's so important and good to know that. But we all have those sparks in us. Everybody's capable of anything they want to. We're different from plants in that way. We don't have to count on somebody else to spark for us. We already have it in us. We all are creators, a piece of the creator.
But naturally, plants in their original, where they originate from,
no,
they don't need people.
Right.
They need people because a person said, this would look great in my living room. I'm going to move it from the Amazon to Arizona or where, whatever they're doing.
You're right.
But in their natural environment where they originated, they don't need anything.
Well, the creator made them just for that reason. Like, take care of this plant. I'm putting you here to take care of that, which is just so juicy. So I love that. I think we should all be craving light because, I think we all do crave light. We just don't even realize. So to be open to the feeling of like, wow, I think there's more for me out there is what that is. So I'm going to end this light-filled thing by telling you that Elisheva has a fabulous light-filled podcast. And it is called the Weekly Energy Boost. She does it with another teacher, David, from the Kabbalah Center, and they talk all about light and weekly light and just these kind of things that are so interesting and fabulous. And like she said, it's never telling you what you need to do, just telling you what's available to you. And that is just fabulous. So I appreciate everybody being here. I hope everybody's turning on the lights as we speak and getting themselves out in some sunshine because that's good for the soul, good for the plants, good for all of us. And keep in mind, life is a garden and we are all gardeners. So thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me.
And keep growing, folks.